All right, welcome everybody to today's webinar here at BINA. Just before we begin, for honesty's sake, obviously everything we discuss here is from Torah and from halachic and Torah authorities, but today's shir will be from a book where this idea was compiled called Headlines, written by David Lichtenstein, a fascinating book putting Torah views together with current events. So today's topic is so emotional and so sensitive that either way we resolve this and whatever answer we come away with is not going to sit well with us, because it's such a painful subject that it's really a lose-lose situation, and any path that we take is going to be very hard to accept on an emotional level. Now, the truth is that we actually won't come to a conclusion. This is an unresolved issue. But as we will see, we're going to go through various opinions within Torah and see how it relates to our topic. And even though it's unresolved, we'll explain at the end how just by having this discussion, we get a certain perspective on how Torah views murder and life, etc. So the question we're going to discuss today is, can one murder a few innocent human beings in order to save a lot of other innocent human beings? Now, where in modern day history do we have such a dilemma? So, not so long ago was September 11th. On that day, 4 planes were hijacked in the United States of America. 2 of them crashed into the 2 World Trade Centers, killing thousands of innocent human beings. The other one crashed into the Pentagon, and the 4th one crashed in a field in Pennsylvania. Now, during this time that this was all happening, actually the President of the United States, President Bush at the time, was not in the White House. There was a lot of confusion, a lot of lack of communication, and either way, we're not going to get into American scandals and politics, but either way, the order went out. It's debatable from who this order came, that we should down all planes. All planes should be on the ground. Any plane left flying besides for the president's plane should be shot down. Why? Because it's a threat. It can crash and kill thousands of other people. So they came to the conclusion that it would be worth it for the United States Army to shoot down a civilian plane full of innocent human beings. It's worth it because it will save perhaps thousands of other human beings. Now, obviously that's a tough call. And the question is, what does Torah have to say? What does halacha have to say about such a dilemma? Can you kill a few innocent people in order to save many innocent people? So, of course, we're not going to find in the Gemara a case about planes or hijackings, but we will find a very similar idea, which perhaps will at least give us a little bit of perspective on this issue. There is a Tosefta in Trumas that says the following. If an enemy comes to a city, to a Jewish city, and says, hand over one of your people for us to murder, or else we will murder everybody. So this is the case. Either this person gets killed, or they will kill everybody. What is the halach? So the Tosefta says as follows. It depends. If the enemy does not specify who they want, they just say, you guys pick, give us one person, and we'll kill him, her, or we'll kill everybody. Then we are forbidden to pick. We are forbidden to hand over an innocent human being to the enemy to murder, even if that means that they will end up murdering everybody. And probably the reason is because who are we to make such a decision? How are we going to say that this person, he is less valuable than everybody else, so we'll sacrifice him to save everybody else? Morally, it is impossible for us to make such a decision. However, let's say the enemy did specify. They said, hand over this specific person. Then the Tosefta says you would be allowed to hand that person over in order to save, as difficult as this is, but you would be allowed to in order to save the entire community. However, Rabbi Yehuda clarifies this ruling. And he says that only applies if it's either you hand me over this guy and I'll kill him, or the enemy says, I'll kill everybody and this guy. So in other words, this guy is going to be killed either way. It's just a question whether the community will hand him over and the enemy will kill him, or he'll just be killed together with everybody else. However, if it's an either-or situation, they say either hand me over this guy, or I'll kill all of you and leave this guy alone. That's different. Then we would be forbidden to hand this guy over, because by handing him over, we are causing his murder. Although yes, the result will be that everybody will be killed, but we cannot, as listening to God's laws, listening to God's commandments, do not murder, we cannot hand over an innocent human being who would have not been killed anyway, and now as a result of us handing him over, he will be killed. Now, before we bring an example for such a thing, an either-or situation, not in the case of an enemy, but in a totally different area, I just want to take a step back for a second and make the following, put forth the following suggestion or following thought. Whenever we go into these type of discussions and in deep moral dilemmas, what's very important to understand is that the answer is not going to always be what works. We're trying to find what is the right thing to do. So, in other words, like this, in the case of the plane crashing into the World Trade Center, if you want to think purely intellectually, leave all the emotions out of the window for a second. If you think in the direction of what works, of course you should shoot down the plane. Think about it. Here you have thousands of people. Each one of them have families, parents, people are dependent on them, they have siblings, they have friends, they have loved ones, and here you have 100 people. Right? In terms of, on a societal level, it would make sense if you have a choice to bring down that plane. However, that's if you think in the vein of what works. But if you think about what's right, well, it could be you might get to the same conclusion. I'm not saying not, but it could be you wouldn't come to that conclusion. Who says it is right that I should be the one to pull the trigger on innocent human beings? In other words, it's not always about what works, what makes more sense. Sometimes it actually, when you talk about morality, it's actually, am I doing the right thing now? And obviously it's Torah which is going to decide what is the right thing. So moving on to bring an example. What would be an example of an either-or situation? So this is a fascinating example. Obviously a very painful example, but a fascinating thought. The Jewish law is that if you have a fetus which is posing a danger to the mother's life, you are allowed to abort that fetus. Because the fetus is not considered a full living being yet, therefore, if it is a threat to the mother's life, you would be allowed to abort that baby. However, once the head has come out, according to Torah, this baby right now is as equal of a human being to the mother. And therefore, once the head has come out of the mother, even if the baby is a threat to the mother's life, you would not be allowed to kill the baby, because why should this life be more valuable to that life? This is an example of an either-or situation. You kill the baby, God forbid, the mother will live. If you, God forbid, have to leave the mother to die, then the baby will live. If it's an either-or situation, we cannot take it upon ourselves to murder somebody who, if not for our actions, would not have been killed. And therefore, in such a case, you would just have to let whatever happens. Again, as painful as that sounds, but again, you have two equal lives. Once again, to clarify, before the baby is born and it's a threat to the mother's life, you would be allowed to kill it. Once the baby is born, which halachically that means once the head comes out of the mother's body, it is a separate life, and therefore it would be forbidden to kill one life in order to save another life. But again, this is a case of either or. The issue over here is that actually in the Talmud Yerushalmi, we know there are two Talmuds, the Talmud, the Babylonian Talmud and the Jerusalem Talmud. In the Jerusalem Talmud, this is brought actually as a dispute between Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says that in a case when the enemy designates a specific person and it's not an either-or situation, meaning this person is going to be killed anyway, you can hand them over. Reish Lakish says even in such a case that the person would be killed anyway and they designated a specific person, you would not be allowed to hand that person over. What would be a proof for either opinion? So a proof for Rabbi Yochanan's opinion is a story in Tanakh about a person by the name of Sheva ben Bichri. Sheva ben Bichri was a person who led a rebellion against King David, against David HaMelech. And what happened was, eventually the rebellion ended, and David's general, Yoav, was hunting him down, because the law is someone who rebels against the king gets the death penalty. So what happened was, Sheva ben Bichri took refuge in a city called Beis Macha, Avel Beis Macha. And the general said to the city, listen, we're going to put a siege around your city. Hand him over, or the siege will continue and the entire city will be wiped out. In that case, it was the right thing to do for them to hand him over. Says Rabbi Yochanan, why? Because over here, the general designated one person, a specific person, and said either him or the whole city. And since he would be killed anyway together with the whole city, so you might as well hand him over. However, Rish Lakish says it's not a proof. Because in that case, Sheva ben Bichri wasn't just randomly singled out. He deserved to die. He was a rebel against the king. He was liable to the death penalty. However, what happens if an enemy comes to a city and says, randomly, this person we want to kill, or we'll kill everybody, including that person? You would not be allowed to hand over that person. So to summarize everything we've discussed, everybody will hold that if the enemy comes and says, you pick a person to hand over or we'll kill everybody, then we are not allowed to do that. We cannot morally pick a person who's to say who's less valuable than the other. If the enemy does designate a specific person, but it's an either-or situation, meaning either we'll kill the whole city or we'll kill this person, but if we kill the whole city, we'll leave this person, everybody will hold, you're not allowed to hand that person over because you're basically murdering him. However, where the dispute is where the enemy singles out a person and says either you hand him over or we'll kill everybody and that person. Rabbi Yochanan says you're allowed to. Rish Lakish would say you're not allowed to. Now, obviously, it's very difficult to understand Rish Lakish's reasoning. I mean, this guy's going to die anyway. And obviously, Rabbi Yochanan argues with that. But just to give a little bit of perspective, what Rish Lakish is thinking, maybe. The end of the day, when you hand over another person to an enemy that you know is going to kill them, you are actively facilitating another human being's murder. That is a sin upon you. When the enemy comes and kills everybody, God forbid, it's the enemy's sin. It's not something that is under our control. It's not something that we can dictate. It's their sin and their fault. Says Reish Lakish, murder is so bad that we should not actively participate in the murder of an innocent human being, and it is better to let the enemy kill all of us than for us to actively participate in an act of murder. That's how bad murder is. Fascinating opinion. But again, this is a dispute. Going back to the plain case, this is exactly the case. The terrorists singled out people. They captured this plane. These people are the people that we're going to kill. And they're not saying this, but the situation is either you shoot down this plane and kill them, or we will kill everybody, but including the people on the plane. These people are going to die anyway. So therefore, it would be subject to this unresolved dispute between Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan. There is more to discuss on this issue, obviously, but I just want to end off the following idea. Why are we discussing this? If it's totally, well, first of all, it's Torah, and it's always good to learn Torah, and it's interesting. But more than that, it gives us a perspective. The fact that this is even a discussion teaches us how bad it is to murder another human being. Even according to Rabbi Yochanan, it's still a discussion. There's an argument. We're talking about this. To some people, it's maybe obvious. Of course, shoot down the plane. What's the point of, or of course, give over this person and don't let the enemy kill everybody. What's the logic not to? But if you go with the perspective that actively facilitating another, even not even directly, but even just handing over another human being to be murdered is one of the worst sins. One of the three worst sins that a person is obligated to give up their life for rather than kill someone else. You understand the discussion here, at least. You understand why we're even talking about this. Because it's such a severe sin to murder an innocent life. That's how much value Torah puts on life, and how bad it is to take away life, that this is even a discussion. So, although this is a case is unresolved, but the discussion is unbelievable and insightful and amazing. Have a wonderful day.